Greetings everyone. Welcome to this initiative of daily answer writing practice. I am Amit Kumar. Dear students, as you know that considering means 2027-2028, we have started our new initiative of daily answer writing practice. Now let's see what we are going to do in this initiative. So in this initiative, we will discuss 4 questions from GS paper 1 to 4, means each question from each GS paper on daily basis, right? Second, here we will do in-depth analysis plus solution. Also, we will cover last 15 years PYQs, right, of all GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, we will focus on static plus current affairs because questions are asked from both static plus current affairs topic. It is completely means oriented approach and it will help you to develop your writing skills, right? So this is all about this initiative. Now, one more thing, if you are a beginner and you don't know how to start answer writing, then you must watch this video. I have told you, right? I have explained that how to start answer writing, right? So please watch that video. Link is given in the description box. Now, coming to the main point. So this is the first question from GS paper 1, and we have picked it from year 2025, right? 25. You have to answer in 150 words. It is a 10 marker question. Simple. Now, this question is from Indian art and architecture, right? So it says discuss the salient features of Harappan architecture. So it is a straightforward question. The question is asking about Harappan architecture or Indus Valley civilization's architecture, right? Now the tail word is discuss, also known as directive, right? You can call tail word or directive, both are same. So what is the tail word or directive? It is discuss. So what is the meaning of discuss? See, if the question mentions discuss, then you have to examine the topic from different dimensions. You have to cover multiple dimensions plus support your points with examples, right? And here not only facts but also explain their significance. Clear? Now, so first, as you know that each answer has 3 parts: introduction, body and conclusion. So first we will write the introduction, right? And in introduction we will define Harappan architecture or Indus Valley civilization, right? Then in the body we will explain the salient feature of Harappan architecture, right? Then finally we will conclude the answer. So first we will write the introduction, and if it is a 150 word question, right, try to write your introduction within 20 to 30 words maximum. 20 to 30 words, right? Only then you will be able to maintain the word limit. Now you have to define Harappan architecture. So here you can define Harappan or Indus Valley civilization, right, circa 2600 BC to 1900 BC, right? This was the time period of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization, right? So what was it? Why it is famous for? It is mostly famous for its civilization, its architecture, right? So continue the statement. You can write that Harappan or Indus Valley architecture was one of the world's earliest urban civilization, right? It was not a rural civilization but urban civilization. Full stop. Right? Again you can continue. Why it is famous for? It is famous for its urban civilization, means its architecture was distinct, right? Very distinctive, right? Very different from other, right? So here you can continue. Its architecture is distinguished by its architecture is distinguished by what? Scientific town planning, standardized construction. Scientific town planning, right? Standardized construction, right? So, scientific town planning, standardized construction, and something else, and efficient civic amenities, right? And efficient civic amenities, right? So mostly Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization was famous for scientific town planning, standardized construction, and efficient civic amenities, right? You can imagine almost more than 4,000 years ago there were well drainage system, right? Town planning, right? Uniform structure, private wells, right? So such things were there. Now your introduction is complete. Now you have to write body, and in the body you have to address the features, salient features of Harappan architecture, right? So here you will explain, here you will discuss, right? The planned urban layouts, standardized constructions, advanced drainage system, and water management system of Harappan architecture, monumental public structures like Great Bath, right? Large granaries, specialized architectural features, for example, massive reservoirs, right? Dockyards, and lastly, fortification and civic administration, like cities were protected by walls, fortified cities, right? Uniformity in the construction. So here you can write in the body. So first, what did I say? First one you will mention that the planned urban layout, right? So make sub points. So sorry, planned urban layouts. So urban layouts means what? Planned urban layouts means cities were what? Cities were laid out on iron grid basis, iron grid pattern. Its streets were right intersecting at right angle. So simply here you can write. So cities were cities were laid out on iron grid pattern, right? Laid out on iron grid pattern, right? And something else. Plus streets were what? Intersecting at right angle. Plus streets were intersecting at right angles, right? If you have seen the urban architecture of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan culture, right? You could easily see that it was laid on iron grid pattern plus streets, right? Were intersecting at a right angle, right? Such type of crossroad like structure were made, right? Apart from that, also most settlements, right? Most settlements. So most settlements were divided into two parts. Two parts means what? First part is citadel, right? Citadel means it was upper part of the town, right? And lower part known as lower town. So citadel were mostly administrative or religious places, right? So that it could be saved from floods or whatever, right? And lower town basically it was related to residence. Clear? Best example you have to substantiate with example, right? So give example of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Example, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, right? So you have addressed the planned urban layout. Second, why it was famous? For standardized construction, right? Even we have mentioned it in the introduction, in the definition, right? So second point you can write standardized construction. So standardized construction, it includes, for example, extensive use of uniform burnt bricks, and the ratio of bricks, right, was uniform. Ratio of bricks were what? So burnt bricks, uniform burnt bricks. And what was the ratio of bricks? 1 is to 2 is to 4. 1 is to 2 is to 4, right? So they were uniform, right? Even today we follow the same ratio of bricks, right? 1 is to 2 is to 4, right? Almost the size of modern bricks is 2.5 inch, right? The thickness, the width is 5 inch and length is 10th inch, right? And in some areas it is 2 inch, 4 inch and 8 inch, right? But the ratio is same, 1 is to 2 is to 4, right? This is how it matches with the modern bricks, right? Apart from that, also houses, right? And houses included multiple rooms, courtyards, right? Bathrooms, even private wells for supply of water. Example, residential complex at Harappa, right? So here you can give example, residential complex at Harappa. Simple. We have addressed the second point. Now, also, Harappan civilization had advanced drainage and water management, right? Advanced drainage and water management. Clear? So, even drainage system and water management were very advanced, right? For example, there were covered underground drains connected to houses, right? Soak pits were there, inspection holes were there, and numerous wells to ensure water supply. Here we have seen that each and every houses and mostly houses had private wells, right, for water supply. So most of the houses had private wells, right? And here best example is drainage network of Mohenjo-daro, right? So here you can give example, drainage network of Mohenjo-daro, right? Now next point, monumental public structures. monumental public structures. Clear? So what do we mean by monumental public structures? So mostly like Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro, right? It represents the most sophisticated hydraulic engineering. So here you can give example. Great Bath, where? At Mohenjo-daro, right? And it is one of the best example of sophisticated hydraulic engineering, right? Apart from that, also large granaries, right? So large granaries store houses of grains, right? For any kind of emergency situation, drought like situation, and large granaries have been found at Harappa, right? At Harappa. So these are the best example of monumental public structures. Clear? So granaries represented both storage plus administrative capability, right? Next, other important point you can write, that is specialized architectural features. Specialized architectural features. So here specialized architectural feature, it includes, right? For example, massive reservoirs where at Dholavira, right? Water conservation is or structure. So here you can give example, massive reservoir, massive reservoirs where at Dholavira, where it is located in Gujarat. Apart from that, very famous dockyard of Lothal, right? And it is considered to be world's earliest known dockyard, right? So here you can write world's earliest known dockyard, where at Lothal, and both places are located in Gujarat. Clear? Now another point you can write, right? Last point you can write, fortification and civic amenities or civic administrations, right? Fortification and civic administration. So fortification and civic administration, it is represented by the fortified walls, right? So cities were covered or cities were protected by fortified walls, right? Evidences have been found of fortified cities. So here you can write, cities were protected by fortified walls. Cities were protected by fortified walls. Okay, so that war-like situation could be avoided, right? Plus civic administration. So civic administration, it includes like uniformity in the construction of houses, right? Uniformity in the construction planning. Simple. Plus governance. Now, so we have addressed all the key features of Harappan architecture. Now we will address, right? Now we will conclude our answer. So here you have to write the conclusion. Simple, right? So again, in the conclusion, your essence of answer should be reflected, right? Avoid repeat any kind of repetition of same point, but the essence of the answer should be reflected in the conclusion, right? So here you can write in the conclusion, what should be the conclusion? Again, you have to right tell about the Harappan architecture. So here you can write, Harappan architecture represents an extraordinary achievement in urban planning, right? Here you can write, Harappan architecture represents 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 an extraordinary extraordinary achievement in, right? You can write an extraordinary achievement in in what? In urban planning, in sanitation and civic management. Urban planning, sanitation and civic management, right? Full stop. Then apart from that, you can continue that its emphasis on functionality, right? You can continue, its emphasis on functionality, comma, then you can continue, functionality, standardization and public welfare, standardization and public welfare, public welfare, right? Public welfare continues to inspire modern planning practices or system. Inspire modern town planning practices, right? So here we are done with the answer. Now just have a quick look, right? So first we have written the introduction, right? Then we have written the body, and in the body we have addressed all the salient feature of Harappan architecture, right? First we have addressed planned urban layout, then we have addressed standardized construction, then advanced drainage and water management, then monumental public structures like great bath granaries, then we have addressed specialized architectural features, and lastly fortification and civic administration, right? And finally we have concluded the answers. Now we will move towards the next question. So this is the second question, and this question is from GS paper 2, right? And year 2025's question, right? So read the question. It says, compare right compare and contrast, right? These are the two tail words, compare and contrast. Compare means you have to write the similarities, contrast means you have to write the differences, right? The president's power to pardon in India and in the USA, right? So the question is asking about the pardoning power of president in India as well as in USA, right? Apart from that, it says, are there any limits, right? Any limits to it, right? Are there any limits on pardoning power of president, right? in India or USA. In both the countries, what are preemptive pardons, right? So here you can see that the question demands three things. First, you have to compare and contrast the president's pardoning power in India as well as in USA. First part. Second part, you have to tell the limits on the powers of pardoning powers of India and US's president, right? And finally, you have to tell about what is preemptive pardon, right? So preemptive pardon is basically pardon in advance, just like anticipatory bail, right? You apply for bail in advance. In the same manner, you apply for pardon in advance, right? But it only belongs to USA. It is not applicable in case of India, right? Now you have to write the question. So first, we will write the introduction, and in the introduction, what is the key focus? Power of pardon. So here you have to define pardoning power of president, right? So here just write introduction, and again, as it is a 150 words question, right? So you have to introduce, means you have to write the introduction within 20 to 30 words, right? So here you can write the power of pardon. The power of pardon is an executive clemency of pardon. Power of pardon or power to pardon, you can write. Pardon is an executive clemency right, executive clemency that enables the head of state to grant relief, that enables the state to grant relief from what? From any kind of judicial punishment, right? That clemency that enables the head of state, right? Head of state, both in case of India or USA. Who is head of state? The president, right? So head of state to grant what? To grant relief, right? To grant relief from judicial punishment. Judicial punishment, what? Punishment in deserving cases, only in deserving cases, in deserving cases, right? Now you have defined that what is pardon of power, right? What is power of pardoning? So it is nothing but executive clemency that enables head of state, right, the president, to grant relief from any kind of judicial punishment in deserving cases. Now you have to write the constitutional provisions. See, if you are writing the answer of polity, you must include important articles, right? So in India it is article 72, in USA it is article 2, section 2, right? So here you can write, right, in India, right, the pardoning power, or it is conferred to the president, right? In India it is conferred upon the president under which article? 72, right? Under article 72, right? And in the USA, right, it is conferred upon the president, under which article? Article 2, section 2. Under article 2, comma, section 2. Simple. Right? Now, underline such important points. Article 72, article 2, section 2. Right? It will drag the, you can say, the eyes of examiner. Right? Now, we have addressed the introduction, the main topic. What is it? The power of president. We have addressed under which article in India and USA it is granted. Right? Now, the question demands the comparison and contrast. So, first we will write the similarities between the pardoning power of India and US. Right? Then we will write the differences. So, first we will write the, in the body we will address body. Right? So, point A, here we will have to write the similarities, similarities and differences, similarities and differences between president's pardoning power in India and USA. President's pardoning power in India and USA. Simple. Now, first we will write the similarities, right? Similarities, then we will write the differences. So, here you have to write the similarities. Similarities. Right? Now, what are the similarities? So, basically, 4 similarities. First is both in India and USA. Right? President enjoys the pardoning power. Means, president is the constitutional head, right? Or head of a state. So, here you can write, right? Constitutional, first similarity, constitutional executive power. First similarity, right? Under we have already written, right? So do not repeat the same point, right? Examiner can easily identify that you have addressed the issue. You have written, Article 72 and Article 2, Section 2, right? So don't repeat that. First is constitutional executive power. First similarity. Another similarity is what? It intended to correct judicial errors, right? Any kind of judicial miscarriage, right? So intended to discourage or correct, you can write, to correct judicial errors, right? Plus to provide humanitarian relief, right? So you can continue, and to provide humanitarian relief, right? To correct the judicial errors plus providing humanitarian relief. Simple. These are the two similarities. Another similarity, it acts as a check against excessive punishment, right? So here you can write acts as a as acts acts as a check against excessive 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 punishment, right? Simple. And last similarity you can write, it can remit, commute, right, any sentence in appropriate cases. So commute and remit, right, Con- commute and remit sentences in appropriate cases. Sentences means punishment, right? Sentences in appropriate cases, right? The case should be appropriate, right? The case should have scope, right? Now we have addressed the similarity. Now we will write the differences, right? Differences between the pardoning power of India and USA. Differences, right? So whenever you write the differences, always I say make table, right? It is one of the best method to differentiate between two object, two or two, right? So here first you can write one side India, another side USA, right? So we have seen certain basic differences. For example, in India it is granted under article 72, in USA it is granted under article 2 section 2. In India we follow parliamentary form of government, in USA we follow presidential form of government, right? In India, president acts on the advice of council of ministers, right? He or she cannot go against the advice of council of ministers. But in USA, right, as USA follows presidential form of government, that's why president acts independently. Also another difference, offense under any law, right, whether it is under law, right, all death sentences plus court martial, right, can be pardoned by president of India. But in USA, right, the president of USA has limited scope. Limited scope means he can, right, pardon or commute only federal offenses, not applicable to state offenses. Also, in case of India, the president can pardon, reprieve, respite, remit, suspend, commute, right, any sentence. In USA, the president can pardon, commute, and reprieve sentences. In India, president's right decision is subject to judicial review, right? And this was a question in prelims 2025, right? The decision of president regarding pardoning power is subject to judicial review or not? The answer is yes, right? In India, but in USA, it is very limited. Means very limited scope of judicial review in case of USA. So these are the differences. You can easily write, right? Now I am pointing out some of the. So first, in India, it is under Article 72. In USA, it is under Article 2, Section Section 2, right? That is the major constitutional difference, right? Apart from that, in India, we follow parliamentary form of government, right? In USA, it is presidential form of government. Clear? In India, president president acts on the advice of on the advice of Council of Ministers. right? In USA, president, right? Presidents act independently, right? President acts independently. Clear? Now, other scope in India, president can pardon, right? All sentences, right? Means offenses under law, all death sentences plus court martial. So, right? Sentences, sentences or offenses under law, offenses under law, right? Death sentence and what? Court martial, military court, right? In USA, the president can primarily pardon, commute, and reprieve. So, primarily pardon, commute, and reprieve, right? And only here limited scope, only USA, right? In USA, it should be the federal law, but in India, even state laws, right? If the person has been convicted under state laws, right? Even that could be pardoned by the president of India, right? For example, a person, right, who has been sentenced under state law, death sentence, the only the president can pardon, not even the governor. But in USA, only the president can pardon only sentences that is related to federal laws, not state laws, right? And last important point, very important, subject to judicial review, right? This limits the power of president in India, right? Right? Means here the president's decision should not be nullified. It should not be politically motivated. Sorry, right? It should not be politically motivated, right? And here, very limited, very limited scope of judicial review. Now we will write the limits on pardoning power of president in India and USA, right? Limits on pardon or on the pardon power, right? On the pardon power. So first we will address the limitation on the pardoning power of Indian president. Then we will address limitation on American president. Right. So first here we will write limits in India. Limits in India. Right. See, one of the limitation and most important limitation is the president shall always act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Right. That is the most important limitation on the president of India. Right. And it is covered under or it is written under Article 74. Right. So here you can write, although, right, although Article 72 grants wide discretion, the power is not absolute. Although Article 72 grants grants wide discretion, comma, the power is not absolute. Absolute discretion, right? Absolute discretion, the power is not absolute. First up, now, why not absolute? First, the president is bound by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers under Article 74. So here you can write the president is bound by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers under Article 74. Right? Simple. Second important limitation, that is, we have seen when we saw the differences. So here the president's decision is subject to judicial review. Right? So here exercise of pardon, right? Exercise of pardon is subject to judicial review. Right? When subject to judicial review. If, right, if, what should be the reason? The reason could be if the decision is arbitrary. Second, the decision is malified. The decision is politically motivated, or the decision is discriminatory. So here you can write if the decision is arbitrary, right? Decision is malified. Decision is discriminatory. Right? Or politically motivated. Right? Then it is subject to judicial review. Clear? Now, to substantiate your answer, you should mention, and you must mention, right? You must mention certain important judgments of Supreme Court, right? So here, important judgments of Supreme Court, you can mention important judgments of the Supreme Court, right? I am simply mentioning the case law, right? The name of cases. First is Maru Ram versus Union of India, 1980, right? Ram versus Union of India, 1980. Simple. So, in this case, the Supreme Court held that the president must follow Article 74. Article 74 means the president must act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. He cannot act in arbitrary manner. Right? Means president is bound by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Right? Another important case, Kehar Singh versus Union of India, 1989. Kehar Singh versus Union of India, which year? 1989. Right? Another important case you can mention, E. Sudhakar, right? Ipru Sudhakar versus State of Andhra Pradesh, year 2006, right? Versus State of Andhra Pradesh, which year? 2006, right? And last important case you can write. The case is very famous again, Shatrughan Chauhan versus Union of India 2014. Chauhan versus Union of India 2014. So these are the four important case laws, right? Judgments of Supreme Court that you must mention while mentioning or you are writing answer about pardoning powers of president, right? And in all these cases, Supreme Court somehow, right, limited the or limits the power of pardoning power of president, right? Now we will see the limitation on the pardoning power of USA, right? So here limits in the USA. So first limitation we have seen that the president of USA can pardon only federal offenses, right? So only in case of first is only in federal offenses, right? Second important limitation that the president means the president of USA cannot pardon person impeached by Congress. So here you can write can't pardon person impeached by impeached by the Congress. The Congress means the Parliament of USA, right? If a person has been impeached by the Parliament of USA, Congress, right, then the president cannot pardon the person, right? Next, the president cannot interfere in state offenses, as we have mentioned in the first line, right? First point, only in federal offenses. So here again, can't pardon state offenses, right? If a person is convicted in a state offense, then the president of USA cannot pardon that person, right? Again, better here you can write interfere, right? Can't interfere, can't interfere state offenses. And lastly, again, misuse, right? If the president misuse the pardoning power, then the president may invite or it may invite political accountability and congressional scrutiny. So here misuse, misuse, right, can invite misuse of pardoning power, pardon power, can invite political political accountability and congressional scrutiny, right? Or congressional scrutiny. Simple. So these are the limitation on the or limits in the USA, right? Regarding the pardoning power of president. Now, last part of the question, that is what is preemptive pardoning power, right? So here you can see the question, or here the question, right? The question demands what are the preemptive pardons, right? The question is demanding what are the preemptive pardons. Now you have to address the remaining part. So here we will write what are the pardoning power, preemptive power, right? So here now we will write what are or what is preemptive pardon. So here you can write What is preemptive pardon? Right? Or simply you can erase what is preemptive. Right? Preemptive pardon. So here, as I said earlier, in the when I started discussing this question, right? Preemptive pardon, it is just like anticipatory. Means pardon is granted in advance, before conviction or even before the criminal charges are framed. Right? So simply you can write preemptive pardons are pardon granted before conviction or even before or even before right or even before criminal charges are filed. Right? So without any conviction, without any criminal charges, the person is granted pardon in advance. Right? Best example, in 1974, right? In 1974, what happened? That General Ford, right? General Ford granted preemptive pardon to Richard Nixon, right? Regarding all offenses that was related to Watergate scandal, right? So here, in simple, in short, you can write General Ford granted preemptive pardon to Richard Nixon, right? Richard Nixon related to all the offenses he may have committed during watershed scandal, right? Simple. Now, in case of India, see, in case of India, as we have seen that in India we don't have preemptive pardon, right? 72 Article 72 mentions pardon only after conviction, once the sentence had been said, right? So here, in case of India, you can write India, right? So here you can mention only that no expressively recognized preemptive pardon, no expressively recognized preemptive pardon, right? And Article 72, it grants pardon only after conviction, only after sentence. Simple. So this was all about preemptive pardon. Now you have to conclude your answer. So simply just write the conclusion. So again, you have to reflect the essence of answer in your conclusion. So here you can write the pardon power in both India and USA serves as an important constitutional safeguard to temper justice with mercy. Right? Then you can give full stop. Apart from that, you can continue. However, the US president enjoys broader personal discretion. The Indian president exercises this power within the framework of ministerial advice and judicial review, ensuring the executive clemency remains consistent and constitutional morality and rule of law. Right? Simple. This is how you can write the conclusion. Now we will move towards the next question. Third question from GS paper 3. Right? So again we have chosen from year 2025. Right? And 150 words question, 10 marker question. So read the question first. It says examine, right? So the tail word is here examine. What is the meaning of examine? We will see. Examine the factors responsible for depleting groundwater, right? Factors responsible for depleting groundwater in India. Clear? Now, what are the steps taken by the government? Steps taken by the government to mitigate such depletion of ground, right? So the question is about depleting groundwater. You have to examine that. Also, you have to tell the steps, the initiatives, right? Schemes by the government, right, to mitigate depleting groundwater, right? Now, so first, what is the meaning of examine? See, whenever the question mentions examine, you have to investigate the issue in detail, right? Plus, identify and explain the major factors, right? So here you have to identify the major factors. What are the major factors, right? Apart from that, you have to present a logical and balanced analysis, right? And lastly, you have to tell the steps. Here, steps means initiatives, schemes, plans of government, right? So that groundwater depletion could be checked, right? Now, let's write. So first, we will write the introduction. So the question is all about groundwater, right? Depleting groundwater. So here you have to define groundwater. What do you mean by groundwater, right? Or what do you know about groundwater level or groundwater in India? So here you can write that groundwater in India or groundwater is India's largest source of fresh water, supplying almost, right, or nearly 60% of irrigation and over 80% of rural drinking water, right? So here you can write groundwater groundwater in groundwater is India's largest source of fresh water, right? Is India's largest source of fresh water, right? And fresh water means what? Mainly used for drinking, right, or other domestic purposes. So fresh water supporting nearly 60% of irrigation, nearly or about 60% of irrigation and 80% of rural domestic drinking water needs. Rural rural domestic, right? Rural domestic drinking water needs or rural drinking water needs, you can say. Rural drinking water needs, right? Then you can continue that unsustainable extraction has led to limiting or alarming, right, alarming groundwater depletion. Obviously we are extracting unsustainably. So here you can continue unsustainable extraction has led to alarming alarming groundwater depletion, right, threatening water security and agricultural sustainability, right? Alarming groundwater depletion, groundwater depletion, right? Sorry, not depleting, groundwater depletion, depletion, threatening, threatening water security and agricultural sustainability. Threatening water, water security, or you can say, yes, water security and agricultural sustainability. Security and and agricultural sustainability. Simple. So we have addressed the issue. What is groundwater, or what is the importance of groundwater in India? Right, nearly 60% of irrigation and around 80% of rural drinking water need, right, is fulfilled by groundwater. Simple. Now you have to address what the factors, right? What are the factors? Factors responsible for depleting groundwater, and you have to also address steps, right? Initiatives taken by the government. So first we will write the factors. So now you have to write the body, and in the body you will address the factors responsible for groundwater depletion. Groundwater depletion, right? So what are the factors, right, which are leading to groundwater depletion? So simply, right, there are certain factors like agricultural factors, urban and industrial related factors, right, environmental factors, institutional factors, right, these are the factors. So you can mention like that. First is agricultural factors. So how agriculture and agriculture related activities, right, or agricultural factors are depleting groundwater? So first is water intensive crops. Water intensive crops mainly paddy and sugarcane, right, both requires high or very high demand of water, right? Both are called water intensive crops, right? Second, or subsidized electricity also leads to excessive overuse of water, right? Sometimes it is called as over irrigation or flood irrigation, right? So such factors are agricultural factors. Second factor, urban and industrial factors, right? So under urban and industrial factors, first is urbanization, right, plus growing population growth, both requires water consumption, right? As urbanization increases, population growth increases, right, both requires water consumption, means both leads to increase in the water consumption, right, whether it is for domestic purpose or drinking or other activities, right? Third is environmental factors. So environmental factors like irregular monsoon, right, one of the biggest reason behind water depletion, right? Apart from that, climate change also very important factor, right? Apart from that, concretization, especially in cities, towns, that limits or checks the rainwater infiltration in, right, and depletion of groundwater. And lastly, important factor, that is institutional factors. Institutional factors. So institutional factors like lack of awareness, right, weak enforcement of groundwater related regulations or policies, right, lack of awareness among communities regarding water conservation, right, recharge of groundwater. So these are called institutional factors. Now we will discuss the government steps, right, government policies. Government steps, right. Simple. So government steps. Now what are the government steps or schemes? So here first you can mention the policy and regulation related measures, right. So here you can write policy and regulation related measures. So what are the policy or regulation related measures? So schemes like Atal Bhujal Yojana, right, Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Apart from that, Central Groundwater Authority, right. These are the policy and regulation related or regulatory related measures, right. So first scheme you can mention, that is Atal Bhujal Yojana, right. In short, I am writing Atal Bhujal Yojana, right. Second is what? Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Third, Central Groundwater Authority, right. It primarily, the function of Central Groundwater Authority is to primarily regulate extraction of groundwater, right, and especially by industries. Simple. Another step. So what are the another steps? So conservation and recharge related measures, right, and then you can write agriculture related measures. Conservation and recharge related measures. Simple, right. So here government is building check dams, right, water reservoirs, recharge wells, right. It is spreading awareness regarding rooftop rainwater harvesting, right. Government is developing watershed, right, watershed and revival of traditional water sources or water bodies like bodies, right, or step wells. So such are, or these are nothing but traditional water sources. So government is reviving them. Apart from that, another initiative, agricultural measures, right. So agricultural related measures like government is, first scheme is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right. So it is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right, not Kisan, Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right. So what is it? It is related to micro irrigation program, right, micro irrigation, related to micro irrigation. And micro, what is micro irrigation? It saves water, right, prevents overuse or excessive flow of water, right. For example, drip irrigation method. It is nothing but micro irrigation method, right? Apart from that, enhancing crop diversification. Crop diversification, right? Crop diversification, for example, as I said, water intensive crop like rice, paddy, right? Paddy and sugarcane, right? These are water intensive crops. So government is focusing on and spreading awareness about crop diversification, right? Grow crops which uses less water and gives maximum output, right? Apart from that, water efficient farming techniques. So for example, micro irrigation method, clear. And one more example here you can give, that in Haryana, an initiative called Mera Pani Meri Virasat, means my water my heritage, clear. And what is it? It is an initiative under which farmers are being aware, or awareness being spread among farmers regarding that they should move from water intensive crop to less water consumption, right, crops. Simple. Next, now you have to conclude. Conclusion. So again, you have to reflect that groundwater depletion is a major problem or multi-dimensional challenge in India. Simple. And it requires sustainable and efficient water use technology. Fine. So this is how you can write the conclusion. Clear? You can continue. For example, an integrated approach led by government as well as common people can solve groundwater depletion related problem in India. Simple, right? Now we will move towards the next question. So this is the fourth question from GS paper 4, right? Ethics. So read the question. It says, what are the major teachings of Mahavir? Right? So the question is about Mahavir, and it's a straightforward question. It says, explain their relevance in the contemporary world. So here you have to explain simply the teachings of Mahavir, and means teachings means important teachings. For example, five Mahavartas, right? Anekantavad, Ratnatraya, all these are important teachings of Mahavir, and you have to explain their relevance in contemporary world. Means what is the relevance of Mahavir's teaching in the current world? Simple. Now let's try. So here first you have to define, right? Means write the introduction. Now in the introduction you have to tell, right? You have to tell about Mahavir in brief, right? Who was Mahavir, right? What was or what were his teachings? Simple. So here you can write that Mahavir, in bracket you can mention. And one more thing I would like to tell you, that whenever you mention certain important personality, right, or a person like Mahavir, Gautam Buddha, right, then you should mention their year. Simple. So here you can write that Mahavir, Mahavir in brackets 600th century BCE, right? Who was it? He was the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism, right? And just like was the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism, right? Apart from that, why he is known? He is known for preaching the path of non-violence, self-discipline, spiritual liberation, right? So here you can write preached a path of preached a path of non-violence, right? Non-violence, self-discipline, and spiritual liberation. Clear? Self-discipline and which kind of liberation? Spiritual liberation. Clear? Now, give full stop. Then you can continue further that his teachings continue to offer ethical guidance for addressing global challenges. Right? His teachings continue to, right? Continue to what? Continue to offer ethical guidance. Which kind of guidance? Guidance? Ethical guidance. Right? Offer ethical guidance in the contemporary world. Okay, or for addressing challenges of contemporary world. Guidance for addressing challenges, right? Challenges or problems, whatever you can write, right? For addressing, right? Addressing challenges in the global world, right? Or contemporary world. Challenges in the contemporary world. Contemporary world. Simple. So here we have addressed the means in the introduction we have written about Mahavir, right? Now in the body you have to tell the main teachings, major teachings of Mahavir and how it is relevant in the contemporary world, right? So you have to divide the body in two parts. First, the major teachings of Mahavir, and second, its relevance in the contemporary world. So first we will write body, right? First is major teachings of Mahavir, right? And you can easily write it because you have learned it in ancient history, even art and culture, right? Plus in ethics. So this is how topics of UPSC, right? Means syllabus of UPSC is interlinked, right? So first major, mention the major teachings. So here we will subcategorize in two categories. First is five Mahavratas, right? Five Mahavratas, right? Also known as five vows, right? So what are these? First is ahimsa, known as non-violence; satya, truth; asteya, non-stealing; brahmacharya, self-restraint or self-control; and lastly aparigraha, means non-possession. So first we will write it. Five Mahavratas are ahimsa, non-violence. Second is satya. Third, asteya. Asteya means non-possession, right? Fourth, brahmacharya, and fifth, aparigraha. Right? And fifth is aparigraha. Clear? So aparigraha means non-possession, do not or not holding any kind of property or asset. Simple. Brahmachari, self-restraint or self-control. Asteya, non-stealing, do not steal, right? Others' wealth or property, whatever. Satya, truth, ahimsa, non-violence. So these are called five Mahavrats, right? Five vows. Now, other important teachings of Mahavir. Other important teachings. So what are these other important teachings? First is Anekantavada. Second is Ratnatraya. Right. So what is Anekantavada? First we will write Anekantavada. See, Anekantavad, it simply means that truth has multiple perspective, and as truth has multiple perspective, it provides you or it gives you tolerance, right? Openness to new ideas, new world, right? And this is how you can develop religious tolerance towards other religions, right? Second is the Ratnatraya, also known as three jewels, or also called as three Ratnas, right? So Ratnatraya. In English, it is called three jewels. And what are these three jewels? Right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. Right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. Simple. So here you can write right knowledge and right conduct. These are called three jewels, or Hindi it is called three ratna, right? Or Ratnatraya, meaning same, right? And all these three lead to or lead to the path of liberation. Simple, right? These three ratnas, right? Three jewels lead towards the path of or path to liberation. Simple. And lastly, what is it? Doctrine of karma, right? Even Gita talks about doctrine of karma, right? In the same manner, Mahavir also talks about doctrine of karma. And doctrines of karma, it simply says that your action determines your future, right? For example, you are preparing for civil services and you are preparing honestly. It means what? In future, obviously, it will repay you, right? But you are cheating yourself, your parents, or just for show off you are appearing in the civil services examination or any other field, right? Obviously it will punish you, you will not succeed. So that is called doctrine of karma. Clear? Now we will see the relevance in the contemporary world, means relevance of teachings of Mahavir in the contemporary world. Relevance in the contemporary world. So in the contemporary world, you can see everywhere, whether it is your personal, social, environmental, right, governance related, religious related, or even your personal mental well-being, right, it's an everywhere, right. The teachings of Mahavir are relevant. So here, first we will start with promoting peace, right, at international level, and currently it requires very much, right, promotion of peace. So first is promoting peace. So one of the most important teaching of Mahavir, right? We have seen five vows, five Mahavartas, and one of them is what? Ahimsa, non-violence. So non-violence always leads to peace, right? So here in the contemporary world, in promoting peace, the teaching of Mahavir has relevance, right? It reduces, means ahimsa or non-violence counters violence, leading to peace. Second is environmental conservation. So environmental conservation here, right? We need, or it teaches you to respect biodiversity, right? Welfare of animal, compassion towards animal, compassion towards other living creatures, right? And it is again, it is nothing but your non-violence, right? Your good conduct. We have seen no right faith, the Ratnatraya, three jewels: right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. So showing sympathy, right, or empathy towards other creatures. It is nothing but your right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. Next, sustainable development. So here, sustainable development, obviously, the whole world is suffering from one disease. You know, what is it? Consumerism. And not only consumerism, over consumerism. Right? People have hundred of clothes, though you don't require. Right? We are accumulating. Right? This is called nothing but over consumerism. And it is very dangerous for sustainable development. So again, aparigrah, which means what? Non-possession. So here, aparigrah teaches you about sustainable development. You must be knowing about the government of India's initiative, Life, right? Life initiative. What is it? Lifestyle for environment, right? And it is nothing but promoting sustainable development. And here, sustainable development is reflected in which teaching of Mahavir? That is aparigrah, non-possession. Clear? Another important, right, factor, that is ethical governance. So ethical governance. See, you all want ethical, or we all want ethical governance, right? But are, when we become part of governance, are we ready to provide ethical governance? Are you maintaining your honesty, integrity, your right faith, right knowledge, right conduct? So here, right, teachings of Mahavir, and teachings of Mahavir, for example, especially Satya and Asteya. Satya, truth. Truth makes you honest. And lastly, Asteya. Asteya means non-stealing. Right? You are not lying to others. You are not accumulating what, or whatever you can say, corruption or bribe. So here it also helps with ethical governance. Next, religious harmony. So we have seen the teaching of Mahavir, that is Anekantavad. We have seen no, other teachings of Mahavir. One of them was Anekantavad. And what is Anekantavad? That it says truth has multiple perspective. And as it has multiple perspective, it allows for openness. Right? Even one of the Veda, it says that keep your doors closed but keep your windows open. Right? In the same manner, Anekantavad, it provides religious tolerance, right? Religious, and establishes religious harmony in the society. It makes you able to listen and understand others, right? In short, it widens your perspective, your sight, and lastly, your personal mental well-being. mental well-being. So, mental well-being, Mahavira teaches you what? Brahmacharya, aparigraha, right? Satya, asteya, ahimsa. So, all these teachings, right, helps in developing self-restraint, discipline, right? And when you develop self-restraint, discipline, tolerance, right, sympathy, non-violence, it reduces your anxiety, stress, and leads you towards the peace, right? So this is all the importance of relevance of Mahavir's teaching in contemporary world. Now you have to conclude your answer. So conclusion. So in conclusion, you have to conclude. I am not writing everything. Right now you can understand and you can write. Right here you can write that Mahavir's teaching transcends time. Right. Why transcends time? Teachings transcends. Right. Transcends time means what? It is beyond any time. Right. Almost Mahavira born almost 2005 years ago, 2500 years ago, but till date his teachings are relevant. So here his teachings are or teachings transcend time, beyond time, right? And even highly relevant in modern world. His emphasis on non-violence, ethical conduct, tolerance, right, and sustainable living provides enduring solution for building a peaceful and inclusive society. So here you can write the conclusion. Clear? So again in today we have discussed 4 questions in very detail. We have written the answer on the screen. You should practice more. Now we will continue this lecture. We will meet in another lecture. Thank you.